Welcome to 20th Century Music and Arts. Tonight's episode is a remastered version of part 2 of my series on Brix Smith in the Fall. Again, I have added video clips and I've re-recorded the vocals, so hopefully everything will be much more enjoyable. I tell you what's going to be really enjoyable is this new intro that was made by my friend Byrne Power. Please enjoy this incredible intro. Please check out his sites, which are listed below, and considering donating to help him bring his amazing book and record collection over from Alaska to his home now in Tbilisi, Georgia. Thank you.
Great because it's a really unique band and it's completely original and it doesn't sound like any other band. It's itself and it's really different kind of music than, you know, all your synthesized pop and everything. I think it's important.
When I was a teenager, I always thought accessibility was something to be spat upon anyway, you know, that's the way I used to listen to records.
Laura Elise Salinger was born in Los Angeles, California in 1962. She would spend part of her life in Chicago and study theater and literature at Bennington College in Vermont. She changed her name to Brix after the song Guns of Brixton by The Clash, and she joined her first group, Branda Dratsing, where she played bass. Eventually, she dropped out of college, traveled back to Chicago, where she found herself at a fall gig in April 1983. After buying a drink at the bar, she turned around and bumped into a man carrying 2 beers with white powder on his nose. That should have been a warning sign, she says now in retrospect. The man was Mark E. Smith. He invited her to a party, and she plays him a tape of her music. Upon hearing the music, he told her that she was a genius. She in turn said she liked his music, but had a hard time understanding the words. He invited her over to Manchester. Soon they would be married, and Brix would become a member of The Fall. The bleak landscape of 80s Manchester was shocking to the Californian Brix, but Smith tried to put a positive spin on the situation. Look, there's the local prison. Look, there's the Boddington's Brewery. But she found herself integrating into the local culture. She was able to make some musical contributions to the Perverted by Language album, and made appearances for the videos of Eat Yourself Fitter, Wings, and Kicker Conspiracy. The album did have the same dirgy sound on most of the tracks that The Fall were known for, but the opener, Eat Yourself Fitter, was filled with humorous observations over a frantic rockabilly rhythm. John Peel was apparently so overjoyed when he heard the track, he fainted and had to be revived. Neighborhood of Infinity pulsates in krautrock style, with Smith ranting about how he used to play Link Ray records on Saturdays. Garden evokes the sound of the early Velvet Underground albums, and on the track Hotel Blodell, Brix provides lead vocals along with the band, additional violin, and of course Smith's narration. Over the next few years, Brix would bring her shimmering guitar rhythms and melodic vocals and integrate them into the Fall sound. It provided an interesting counterbalance to Smith's dark satirical approach to his music. Her inclusion in the band also represented the many contradictions that make up Smith's personality. Here is a man who defines himself as being a British working class punter who has not been corrupted by the American-influenced consumerism of 80s Britain. And what does Smith do? Marry a California girl, and she brought a ray of sunshine into Smith's grotesque musical vision. John Peel was asked to appear on the British music show The Tube. Peel only agreed to do it if he could choose a band to appear on the show, so of course he chose The Fall. This show usually featured artists that were climbing the charts and who produced music that was easy to dance to for the live audience. Watching the audience attempting to dance to The Fall's malevolent dissonant rhythms in the song Smile was a complete manifestation of awkwardness. They also played the song 2x4 off that would be on their upcoming album. Peel got The Fall their first exposure on national TV, and to an audience that would usually watch the latest new romantic artist, they actually got their first taste of this very unique band.
You'll recognise from earlier, John, when we asked you to choose a band that you'd like to see on the tube, you chose this next act, who we won't name yet. What were your motives for choosing this act?
Well, it was difficult because there are a lot of bands that I wanted to choose. It would have been easy to have picked somebody who's like really obscure and difficult and by and large unlistenable, the kind of bands that I play on my programmes at night. But I wanted to pick somebody who's like a favourite of mine for a number of years. And funnily enough, they've never done national TV in this country before. They've done a couple of local things, but they've never been on national TV, which seemed to me to be shocking. So I quite wanted to go down in history as the man who put...
The Fall would sign with Beggars Banquet, a larger label that would give them greater distribution and let them still keep their artistic freedom. The Wonderful and Frightening World of the Fall was released in October 1984. Brix's guitar playing and backing vocals were a key component of the overall sound. This was also the last album with the double drum sound, as Paul Hanley would leave after the tour for this album. The album's opener is the upbeat bar burner, Lay of the Land, which starts with a chant taken from the television series The Quartermass Conclusion, before igniting into a raucous rockabilly charge.
Give up living. I'm who they given.
On the track Elves, the band plays a sinister riff that emulates the Stooges' classic I Wanna Be Your Dog. The band would experiment with dub-style recording with the track Bug Day. The ending track, Disney's Dream Debased, is based on an experience that Smith had when visiting Disneyland in California. Smith felt very uncomfortable after getting off one of the rides, and decided that the ride was evil. Later that day, a woman ended up getting decapitated on the ride. The song's surprisingly mellow tone supports Mark's grotesque description of the day's events. A bloody corpse with people dressed as Disney characters trying to comfort people who have witnessed the horrific accident. The recording of the album was an intense experience. It was recorded live in the studio at high volume, and according to producer John Leckie, Mark would have a can of Special Brew, vodka, and a line of speed going at 11 in the morning just to start the day. This album was the first among 3 albums on Beggars Banquets that are considered to be among the Fall's best. The follow-up album, This Nation's Saving Grace, was recorded in June-July 1985 and again was produced by John Leckie. The band was down to one drummer, and bassist Stephen Hanley went on 4 months paternity leave and was replaced by Simon Rogers. Smith was happy with the production on this album as he felt there was more emphasis on the drums and bass, creating a wall of sound. The album begins with the creepy instrumental Mansion, before Mark declares, "All those who mine entitle themselves, and whose main entitle is themselves, shall feel the wrath of my bombast." This track, Bombast, grabs the listener's attention with heavy riffs, and Smith occasionally singing through a megaphone.
All those who mine entitle themselves, and whose main entitle is themselves, shall feel the wrath of my bombast.
repetitive "What You Need," Smith suggests that what people need is a little Iggy Stooge. The first side ends with the track "LA." This track incorporates electronic music which pulsates, while Smith makes cynical observations about the same famous city. Over time, the band would integrate more use of synthesizers and samples into their music. My New House starts with a repetitive acoustic riff before a mild cacophony begins, and Smith rants about a semi-detached home he purchased. He admits to listeners that "I gets bills and I get miffed."
My new house, you should see my house. My new house, you should see my new house.
The experimental paintwork is a semi-acoustic tape collage that Smith accidentally recorded over with a university lecture on red giant stars when he took the master tape home. The accident seemed to fit the track and remained on the final mix.
Formation was really late. Sequence stars were no good for making carbon in this light. Red giant stars
I Am Damo Suzuki is a tribute to the legendary, and unfortunately now late, Can singer, and directly references the Can track Oh Yeah in its guitar riff.
What have you got in that paper bag? Is it a dose of vitamin C? Ain't got no time for Western lesson. I am Damo Suzuki.
The album is completed with 2 N.K. Roachman Yarbles, which starts with a riff like Mansion and references Clockwork Orange. The final album in this trilogy, produced by John Leckie, is 1986's Ben Sinister. The album's title was taken from the Vladimir Nabokov novel of the same name. The novel takes place in a dystopian society where people are discouraged from being different from one another. The protagonist, Professor Krug, refuses to compromise with the government by promoting its philosophy. This character is a kindred spirit to Smith. The album is sparse in production. It contains a balance of both gloomy dirges and upbeat popish songs. The dark songs are the opener R.O.D., the bass-heavy Gross Chapel British Grenadiers, Riddler, and Autotech Pilot.
Monday night, in Operation Control, I sat facing rows of monitor mountains.
The lighter songs are exemplified by the extremely catchy Shoulder Pads Part 1 and Part 2. The songs have an insanely poppy hook where Smith rants about having to hang out with people who couldn't tell Lou Reed from Doug Yule. Doug Yule was the replacement bass player in the Velvet Underground who played on the 3rd and 4th albums.
Was embarrassed but stuck with them. Walk at shoulder down, street ridicule. They couldn't tell Lou Reed from Doug Yule.
His commentary in the song Terry Waite Says ended up backfiring on him. Waite was a famous hostage negotiator, and when he traveled to Lebanon to secure the release of hostages in 1987, Waite himself was also taken hostage. Mark's criticism of Waite's method and ideology now looks seriously insensitive. Another highlight track is the cover of the 60s garage rocker, The Other Half's Mr. Pharmacist. There would be many more covers that the Fall would produce over the years.
Mr. Pharmacist, can you help me out today in your usual lovely way?
As a Fall fan, these 3 albums, Wonderful Frightening World of the Fall, This Nation's Saving Grace, and Ben Sinister, represent a real high point in the band's sound. I would recommend these albums as the starting point for any new fan that is curious about the band. The band were growing in popularity and were making more TV appearances. Smith looked confident in his long black trench coat, and he would conduct numerous interviews with his wife Brix alongside him. Smith and his wife had great banter, and the band leader came across as charming and witty.
The bloke said to me yesterday, it's funny, he said, you know, the Fall always strikes him as like six talented people almost like fighting against each other, you know.
Brix was also pursuing her side project, the Adult Net. The Adult Net had a much more pop and psychedelic feel than the Fall. The band would release many singles between 1985 and 1989, including a cover of Incense and Peppermints by the Strawberry Alarm Clock. And it was this pop influence of Brix that would really start to take over the Fall's sound. In April of 1987, the Fall will release a cover of R. Dean Taylor's Northern Soul classic, There's a Ghost in My House. With a much cleaner sound than most previous Fall releases, the single reached number 30 on the British charts.
Our love used to be only shadows of the past, I say. Times can't seem to erase the vision of your smiling face.
They would then release Hit the North in October 1987. Brix very consciously, along with member Simon Roger, created a pop song that would go up the charts. She felt that the band needed to be more well-known. Roger used the sequential Circuit Studio 4 sequencer sampler to get the sound that modern new wave bands had been using over the past few years. The next album, The Friends Experiment, would continue this trajectory. Even though Mark's sardonic personality was still present, the techno-pop atmosphere alleviated some of the darkness.
Something happened in Bremen, I know. Something I don't want to.
Soon after, the Fall would release their cover of the Kinks' classic Victoria, which reached number 35 on the charts. Smith's mom would call him and tell him she saw that Elton John said that he liked the Fall because it was rock and roll. Smith felt at that moment he must be doing something wrong. So Smith decided to collaborate on a ballet with Scottish dancer Michael Clarke. Clarke had used the Fall's music to dance to in his fictionalized biographical film Hail the New Puritan. Smith came up with the idea of creating a soundtrack to a ballet that would be performed live. The whole concept was based on the 300th anniversary of William of Orange coming to the throne. The song New Big Prince references the 1982 song Hip Priest from the album Hex Induction Hour. Smith would do a rendition of Blake's Jerusalem on the album. The title of the album, I Am Curious Orange, was a direct reference to Vilgot Skloman's erotic films I Am Curious Yellow and I Am Curious Blue. The music was turned into an album and a live performance with the ballet, and it happened at the Edinburgh Festival. Now, the audience was a mixture of ballet and rock fans. The performance had its share of absurdities. Brix running across the stage on a giant burger, rock fans shocked by Michael Clarke doing ballet movements in an outfit that exposed his buttocks, ballet fans plugging their ears to keep out the cacophony of the Fall. But the upper classics were beginning to heap praise on the Fall, and Smith wanted no part of their praise. Getting write-ups in elite newspapers went against his ethos of being a working-class artist. But there were serious issues going on behind the scenes. Smith was becoming more dependent on speed and alcohol. His marriage to Brix began to crumble. Even though she wrote many of the songs on I Am Curious Orange, she was excluded from the writing credits. The couple grew more distant, and eventually Smith would be unfaithful to Brix. In 1989, she left him. In her eyes, Smith had become a completely irrational drunk. Brix would go on tour with the Bangles and become romantically involved with violinist Nigel Kennedy, audition for the band Hole, and become involved in the fashion business. This day, she has her own band, Brix and the Extricated, that play both Fall covers and original songs. The departure of Brix would lead the Fall on a turbulent journey throughout the 90s, where the band would really hit rock bottom. Tune in to the next episode to see the journey through the destruction and the redemption. Thank you for watching 20th Century Music and Arts. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Thank you.